Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to do a review on the Shockwave Blade. That's this thin piece of plastic that you see back here attached to the buffer tube. And the idea behind this is that you're supposed to hold this one-handed, brace it against your forearm, and shoot this one-handed. Okay, so that's the idea behind this. Okay, and the reason why we would have this on is because this is an AR pistol, right? With a barrel that's less than 16 inches. Because it's a pistol, we cannot put a standard stock on this without going through the ATF and converting this into a short barrel rifle. Okay, so since this is a legal pistol, we have to use this blade. All right, so before we go any further, let's talk for a second about how we use pistols, okay? Right, so here I have a typical handgun, right? 99% of the time when we're shooting this handgun, right, how are we holding it? We're holding it with two hands, okay? All right, we're trying to get the gun as stable as possible so that we can get the most accurate shot that we can get, okay? In fact, if I need to get a really accurate shot, what I will do is I will brace the gun on a surface to get it as stable as possible, so I can hit what I want to hit, okay? So that's a common way of shooting the handgun. If I'm trying to zero my red dot in or adjust the iron sights, I will typically put a bag under the front over here to get the gun as stable as possible, again, so I can zero the gun, you know, and get the most accurate hits that I can get. Okay, so that's how we normally shoot a pistol. We shoot it with two hands, trying to stabilize the gun as much as possible. Okay, so let's go back to the blade now. So on the blade, there's been questions over the last couple of years as far as whether or not you can shoulder this, okay? And last I heard, the ATF said that you can occasionally shoulder this. And okay, under what circumstances would that occasional shouldering would be? Well, I would think it would be under a self-defense type of situation where you absolutely need to get the most accurate shot that you can possibly get, okay? Or if you're training for self-defense, right? Because you can't go into a self-defense, or you don't want to go into a self-defense type of situation unless you've actually been training under those circumstances, right? So if you're doing self-defense training, it would make sense that that would qualify for the occasional shouldering that they're talking about. Or if you're trying to zero the red dot in or the iron sights, you know, again, for that purpose, you need to get the gun as stable as possible, as I would with a handgun, right? As I demonstrated a minute ago, you have to get the gun as stable as possible. So that would also make sense that you gotta shoulder the gun. Okay? Accepting now, right, that we will occasionally need to shoulder this gun, let's talk about how effective this is and how it compares to this brace here. Okay, that's the SBA3 brace. We'll do a comparison of those two. Okay, so before we talk a little bit more about shouldering this, let's for a second, let's talk about why would you want to use this gun? Why would you want to use a gun with a shorter barrel? Well, the reason that I have found is because, you know, what I have found is that most women and in general small people can have a much harder time holding up a longer barreled gun. Okay, so for a lot of women, an AR with a 16-inch barrel is too front heavy for them, right? So they hold the gun here, they get very tired, they don't want to shoot very long. Whereas when you give them a short barreled AR pistol like this, they're able to hold up the gun for a much longer period of time. They enjoy shooting it, they train more, they get better, they're more comfortable with the gun. So in general, I have found that AR pistols are the best guns for self-defense for women. What I find is that when I give them a handgun, with a handgun, it requires a lot more training for, in general now, we're talking about from new shooters. With the handguns, what I find two common problems with new shooters. First of all, because the gun is shorter, it's harder for them to get a sense of where the gun is oriented, especially in a darker setting. When they come up, they point the gun here like that, and they gotta fish around for their sights. The other problem that I see with new shooters and handguns is if they don't have a firm grip, what's happening is the gun is moving around, so it jams up. Because in order for the gun to work, the bottom part has to stay steady while the slide is going back and forth to cycle the gun. So with new shooters, or even experienced shooters under stress, I find that they don't get a good grip on the gun, and the gun's going to jump around a lot, and they're going to jam the gun up. So the AR pistol takes care of that problem, okay, or any rifle in general. Because your hands are further apart, right? You know, you just by pointing your hands, you know, at the target, right, or at the threat, you know, people have a better sense of where the gun is oriented because the hands are further apart. Whereas with the handgun, they don't have that sense because when the hands are closer together, it's a little harder to get a sense of whether your hands are pointed up or down. With the hands further apart, you know, people have a better sense. You know, I train people to basically put the knuckle, you know, underneath the chest area over here, and then that will usually get the red dot right on target. Even if they don't find the red dot, you know, just by putting the arm underneath somebody's chest, they're gonna usually be in the right spot. So so the AR pistol solves that problem. The other problem that it solves is as far as jamming the gun, because the gun is heavier, right? There's more mass to it. You know, even if you hold this gun loosely, the bolt will generally run back and forth and not jam the gun up as easily as the handgun will jam up. Now, it does present other problems. If you're holding the gun loosely, what I have found is that the gun will, you know, AR pistols will bump fire. Okay, you don't need a bump stock to bump fire. You know, an AR pistol or any rifle for that matter. If you hold the gun loosely, it is going to bump fire. And I have seen that happen very frequently, especially by women. They'll do it unintentionally without even knowing or even having heard of this concept of bump firing. If they hold the gun loosely, certainly if you're not pressing it into your chest, if you're trying to cheek the gun, what's going to happen is, right, if you're holding the gun here, you put your finger on the trigger to shoot, you squeeze the trigger, the gun's going to basically recoil back. Well, you're going to be like, oh shit, it's touching my shoulder. It's not supposed to touch my shoulder. You're going to pull it forward. You're going to fire the gun. It's going to come back. You're going to pull it forward. So the gun's going to recoil up against your finger and is going to bump fire. Okay, so you don't want that to happen in a self-defense type of situation. I mean, bump firing is a lot of fun when you're doing it intentionally, you know, for the purpose of having fun. But you don't want it to happen unintentionally. Okay, so that's why in a self-defense situation, you want to brace the gun up against your shoulder so that you can stabilize the gun, get accurate hits, and prevent the gun from accidentally bump firing. Okay, so that's an important consideration. It's a safety concern, right? You don't want the gun firing more bullets than you want to fire. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, I think. Okay, so that covers the why it should be on your shoulder. Now for self-defense, right? Covers that. Now let's talk about how this feels. Okay. Now if you notice that this thing is pretty thin over here, because this is thin, this concentrates a lot of the force in one spot. Okay. If you compare it to the SB-A3 brace, this is obviously a lot wider, right? Right. So that is going to, you know, that's going to spread this out a lot more. Okay. One of the problems that I have found with this is that this rubber will collapse. So that's why I put this in there so that I can kind of maintain that structure, right? So that when I shoot it, I can take this out, right? It's just a piece of rubber. Because what happens is, if you're pressing this into your shoulder to you know, for your self-defense training, this will start collapsing after a while. So when you're storing it, you want to put something in there for storing purposes to maintain its shape. Okay, so it doesn't collapse on you. All right, but the benefit of this is that it does spread the force out a little bit more on your shoulder. I have found women enjoy shooting this a lot more. Another benefit of this is that this is more easily adjustable. You have a button here where you can easily adjust this. Okay, whereas with the blade, okay, this is not easily adjustable. There's an Allen screw over here. You have to undo that screw. And then there's a couple of notches inside in order to adjust the length on this. And what I found is that you have to lock tight that screw in place, because what happened is with the vibration that screw becomes loose, and then eventually this will just collapse on its own on you. Okay, so you know, it kind of surprised me when that happened. So that's when I realized that, hey, I gotta get some Loctite on that Allen screw so that it will stay in place. So so that's one of the disadvantages of the blade. It is not easily adjustable. and it concentrates all the force on a small area on your jacket. And in the summertime, that is extremely uncomfortable. Again, especially for women, that if they're wearing a t-shirt and they're getting all this in their chest. Now, I have found an advantage to this in the wintertime. Okay. In the wintertime, okay, when I give this to most women, remember they're wearing these in the wintertime. They're wearing these big bubble jackets, right? Big bubble jackets or leather jackets. And what happens is when they put this on their chest, this slides off, right? So it's got a big fat jacket. This tends to slide off more against a bigger, fatter jacket, okay? Whereas with the blade, because you have that fine blade over here, that fine edge, if you have a big fat jacket, okay, that's gonna dig into the jacket, that's gonna bite in there, and that's gonna prevent this from sliding out. So in the wintertime, I have seen an advantage to this blade. So when people ask me, which one they should have, I'll tell them, listen, there's an advantage of the one, there's a disadvantages of the other. Okay. Yeah, initially when I got this, I absolutely hated it. I said that I was like, there's no purpose to this. Why would anybody want this when they can get the other one? Okay. The only advantage to this was that it was a little bit cheaper. But in the wintertime, I saw a major advantage to this in that when people are coming with these ridiculously, fat jackets, they're able to anchor this into their chest and do their self-defense training. So yeah, there's definitely a place for this. I wanted to share that with you guys. And it is adjustable, but it is not easily adjustable. Okay, you have to unscrew that Allen screw in there, and then you can adjust it. And then wherever you decide you got to put it, you got to use Loctite, otherwise it will come loose. But beyond that, it works really good. And like I said, these AR pistols are ideal for women or small people because they're not so front heavy. They can hold the gun up for longer periods of time, train longer, get better. So those are my thoughts on the Shockwave Blade. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you got any comments that you wanna share with me or the rest of the group here, please do so. If you're not a member, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.